Wynncraft, the largest Minecraft MMORPG, is currently 9 years old, and one of its biggest updates, Wynncraft 2.0, is just around the corner. The update is about to change a lot of the game's core, so I wanted to take this opportunity to look back into the past and look at Wynncraft 1.0, as I'd like to call all of Wynncraft that's been before this next chapter. I will be taking a look into how I've experienced and played the game. I started back in July 2014 and I've been actively making Wynncraft videos since January of 2015. So we have around 7.5 years worth of Wynncraft gameplay just on this channel. So let's take a look, shall we? We start in the tutorial, January 2015, right after the previous winter update that had come in December. Back then, Wynncraft didn't have a texture pack, but honestly, it wasn't something you really thought about. Wynncraft, for me, has always been really immersive and addictive, even back then when the lag was unimaginably worse. Throughout my time on Wynncraft, many things have of course changed. The tutorial itself has changed several times, but I still have fond memories of how the server used to be. But that of course doesn't mean that it used to be better, it just used to be very different. Ragni, for example, used to be extremely different, and the Emerald Trail and the plains outside the city somehow felt much bigger than they do nowadays, probably because they were much emptier. One of the older quests, called Spider Cave, used to actually be quite difficult to complete early game. I always died to the spiders here. Luckily, now it's been replaced by a different version also themed around spiders called Infested Plants, but at least you don't die to it. Or it's very low risk that you would, compared to this one at least. If you are relatively new to the server, you might have actually come across OG players calling dungeons weird names like the Spider or the Skeleton Dungeon. But back then, they didn't have these fancy modern names like the Decrepit Sewers and such. This is me, by the way, carrying my old friend through the Spider Dungeon, and if you ask me, it was harder back then. Not because it was actually hard to complete combat-wise, but solely based on the fact that it had way more parkour, my one true weakness in this game. Now, of course the content team has improved a lot over the years, but probably one of the things the community never will forget is Old Dentless and the famous tents everyone used to stand on when they were AFK. Another thing as well, somehow I was richer back then than I am now. Just look at all the LE I have. Like I mentioned earlier, Wynncraft didn't yet have a texture pack. It would take until the Gavel update until we got that. But it wasn't uncommon for the community to use their own texture packs to make Wynn get more fantasy looking weapons. The shovel didn't really sell the spear effect, I guess. My quest guiding journey started already back when I first made videos on Wynncraft. For example, this is my guide on the old quest, A Confused Farmer, which later was replaced by Tonal Trouble, and it's sort of similar, but back then it had a different story. It was still around Wynncraft's obsession with cows, but back then it was about this confused farmer who treated a human like a cow until that human ran away and the farmer tasked you to find him. But yeah, Uh, Like Wynncraft's cow obsession and my quest guiding, some things have just been consistent over time. Another of the older quests, and one that I have both good and bad memories with, was called Lord of the Clock. It was a great quest, being a parody of The Lord of the Rings and a genuinely funny story about this poor hobbit who was plagued by an ever-ticking clock. It eventually led you to Mount Wynn, where you had to throw it into the lava and destroy it. Even though this was one of my favorite quests, I still found it quite difficult to complete it because I always died to the strong mobs in the volcano. It took several times until I had figured out a smart way to sort of stick to the wall and rush past them so I could actually complete it. Closer to the release of the Gavel update, my friend and my guildmate had found something related to the update. So we actually made a video together where we explored this kind of secret update that had gone unnoticed. Basically, the mountains bordering both the eastern side of the ocean but also bordering the upcoming Gavel province had been changed and updated, and we went to check it out. And you could basically see what would become the Jofast docks, because everyone knew that the Levagar gate had been added right on the opposite side of the ocean, on the western edge. But we had never heard of this part, so for us, this was sort of the driving force and the hype for the update. And it was an amazing find to sort of see what would become part of the future province. I continued making guides as soon as I unlocked new quests whilst leveling my class. I didn't get very far though, I only got to the level 49 quest, the House of Twain. But to my defense, back then leveling up was much harder and it required much more time. At least it felt like it. Then came the biggest update of Wynncraft thus far. Albeit it wasn't named 2.0, but it might as well have, because it was the release of the Gavel update. It brought a plethora of new things: quests, map changes, the long-awaited texture pack, the music even sounded different. It was incredibly exciting to experience, and it would be the launching point of when my guides got more notice from the Wynncraft community. In the beginning of the update, there was a hype rush to do all the quests and see all the new content, and I know I wasn't the only one staying up playing Win and excitedly waiting through school until I could get back to playing. I think I even uploaded like 5 to 10 videos every day. This was also the time I launched my first and fully completed Let's Play of Wynncraft. I wanted to experience the game all over again with all the new content. And I remember that the main grind spot for the high level players used to be the Frozen Heights. And yeah, it still does exist, but in comparison it has become severely less effective. It was epic back in the day. There was also this secret mystery called the Clock Mystery that was part of the update. Or that's at least what I called it. You basically had to gather broken clocks around the province and bring them together to fight a secret boss for a chance to get a pretty good armor set. It has been gone for a while, but the future 2.0 update is rumored to bring it back. Later on, we got the gameplay update, where I went to explore some of the rebuilt cities like Altmouche and Rymek. They also added some more quests like Elemental Exercise that were aimed to explaining elements to us players, albeit I didn't really get it anyway. But the major thing it brought was boss altars, and I did them all. I even made videos of each one, but I've never really done them since, except if I needed a specific item drop. I kept playing as usual, but I noticed something new and different. Half a year before the Corkus update released, the island was put into the game. It was blocked off, but you could visit one of the cities, Relos. And like the pre-Gavel video, this got me hyped. But what got me most excited was the trailer that they released on YouTube. It was awesome. And then, when Corkus was released, it exceeded my expectations. The walking NPCs were just out of this world. It was another great update with more quests for me to do, so I was very happy. During this time, I also tried making a fast version of quest guides, but it wasn't really something people wanted, so I never tried it again. After 100 episodes, it was time for my Let's Play to come to an end, and it was on the 100th episode when I reached level 100, which back then was the max level. It was my very first class to ever reach the highest level, and to me, that was a massive achievement. In the end of the year, the Dungeons and Discoveries update was added, and it was bigger than I expected, seeing as it was so close to the Corkus update. We got remade dungeons, new dungeon quests, awesome rebuilds, and mostly discoveries, which was a totally new thing. The rebuilt cities like Ragni and Troms I particularly enjoyed. I've always been impressed with the content team's builds, and I really liked how these cities turned out. The best rebuild must have probably been Troms, and it looked vastly different, and only for the better, I'd say. During this time, I also started a new Let's Play, but it never really got very far. I stopped with it after episode 6. But the summer of 2018 was a great summer. I had previously made guides for most of the quests, new ones when they came with the updates and the old ones just when I unlocked them. But they had never really been coherent and not as good as I wanted, so I spent the summer remaking all of the quest guides. And if you watched quest guides on Wynn in the last 4 years, there's a high chance you actually watched one of these. I really loved making them, and it made for a great summer. Wynncraft and guiding, and it only took like 2 months to make all of them. But that was not the only thing that happened. Back then, the corrupted dungeons over in the Gavel province were a bit different to how they are today, and it was a huge community thing to do to spend days just constantly rushing the Silverfish dungeon, also known as the Corrupted Sand-Swept Tomb. It was basically just a straight line to the boss room, super easy and super fast. And there were so many parties with double XP, I got 2 more classes to level 100. Then it was time for another huge change on Wynncraft. It wasn't another Gavel or anything, but the economy update did change how you play the game significantly, especially how I play the game. The addition of professions was exciting, and of course I was already making guides on the best spots already in the beta. But it was also during the beta where I met Salted and actually got the YouTube rank, which, well, still makes me happy to think about to this day. Another awesome thing that happened was the addition of one of the best quest lines, Dwarves and Dogons, where actually IMAX, its creator, helped me play through them during my beta streams. But on a different note, The update did bring some sad memories, because it was time for the old community favorite, Deathless, to be rebuilt, among other areas as well, and we had to see the tents go. The update did also increase the level cap to 104, but sadly they changed the good dungeon, so we had to switch up the ways to grind XP. So it took much longer for me to reach the new max, but I did it after very long grind. Following the update, I also started another Let's Play, focused this time on a class that would only use crafted items, sort of to try out the professions full on. But like previous Let's Plays, I sadly never finished it, mainly because I got too busy with prioritizing other videos. But funnily enough, midway through that Let's Play, where I only use crafted items, they actually added game modes like Craftsman that only lets you use crafted items. I wonder where they got that idea. The same year, I also made a video where I actually drew the Wynncraft map as a fantasy map. And something you might not know is after that video was made, I got it printed on some canvas and it now hangs on my wall. And just like the previous winters, it was time for another update. This time, the Silent Expanse. I was super hyped for this, and I think everyone was, honestly, because we're getting a new area that would be the road to the future Dern province. That's yet to come, but someday in the future we'll get it. I actually started a new class and a new Let's Play, focused around the new Hunted PvP mode. But I never got around to finishing it because this time school got in my way. The update also added yet another awesome quest line, the Journey Beyond and the Journey Further quests, and probably everyone's favorite, A Hunter's Calling. After the initial launch, I actually got one of my first mythics in game. Previous ones I had just bought or gotten as gifts, but this one I actually got from a dungeon. And it was actually one of the best ones, a Cataclysm, which I then sold for a bunch of money. But over time I've come to spend it all, and of course now I'm broke as usual. As I've reiterated several times now, my favorite thing to do on Wynncraft is doing quests. And I think the coolest thing I did was when I decided to do all the quests in sort of one go. Over the span of 3 days, I streamed for 30 hours, and during that time I completed all the quests. And it was pretty cool. It was also fun to see how well I could remember all the secret codes and puzzles. By this time, I actually had leveled most of my classes to the highest levels, and I started doing professions on all of them, because I had the goal to get on the first page of the player's scoreboard. And it's taken lots of grinding and actually several years, but I eventually got there. We now reach 2021 when Wynncraft released the Gavel Reborn update. We got housing, and it was awesome. I've always loved the content team's builds, and now I could make my own build on Wynncraft. And I did! I spent 7 months on probably what is still the largest housing project on the server. And it turned out great. The update also gave me more quests to do, so honestly, it's been one of my favorite updates. Rebuilt areas as well. What didn't this update bring? It also brought raids, and I've been enjoying those a lot. And honestly, they've made me more interested in making builds for my classes. And thanks to a player called Blue the Sniper and his Discord, I managed to get good builds to raid with. In the later half of the year, I actually remade all my quest guides again because my old ones had become outdated with all the map changes and dialogue changes that had been made over the years. And that did take, yet again, like 2 months to do, but it was very fun because I love quests. And here we are, current time. Now with Wynncraft 2.0 just around the corner. I've had a long journey on this server, and it will of course continue. And I don't know about you, but Wynncraft has had a great impact on me and my life. And I am really excited for this next chapter and all these new changes about to come. Wynncraft is the greatest server, and it's incredible how much it has updated over the years. It's really been a great experience. The community is one of the kindest, and I love having to and continuing to be able to help out its player base. I have loved the Wynncraft that's been, so I can't wait for the Wynncraft we're soon going to get.